welcome back to the podcast. My name is Father Bill W., Episcopal priest here in Austin, Texas, and we are going through a book by the title of Living Between Worlds, Finding Personal Resilience in Changing Times. Author is Dr. James Hollis. But we're in the final chapter where he is basically explaining to us what are the takeaways from studying Carl Jung and depth psychology. What is it? What are the major lessons that you can expect to learn from studying this? So we've done 3 already, and in this episode, or part of the episode, we're going to do 4 and 5. And number 4 is, and it's an important one, our psyche wishes to be heard. Our psyche, our soul, has some things to communicate to us. So let's dive in. Perhaps the most accessible way to understand our many distresses, both personal and societal, is to consider whether we are aligned against nature. While thoughtful people know that we cannot continue to plunder our planet without nature reacting violently, and we have much evidence of that happening already, as a culture, we blithely continue lives of waste, exploitation, and valorizing profit as the primary metric for cultural success. Nature's response will not be pretty. So Jung has this thing that how we treat the unconscious is how the unconscious is going to treat us. So this battle is, in a sense, between the ego's conception of what the world is like versus the soul's version of what my life is like. There needs to be a dialogue between those two, a respectful dialogue. And if there is not, if we're just going to kind of push our way through, then there's going to be a reckoning that will happen. That's his point, which he was about to make. So too, whenever we stop growing, inquiring, exploring, our psyche pathologizes as depression, or we self-medicate, or look for ever new ways to divert ourselves. While we continue to walk, employing Jung's metaphor, in shoes too small for ourselves, captive to both our external pressures and our phenomenological stories of adaptation, we are mostly unprepared to undertake the second half of life. As Jung noted, we have no schools for 40-year-olds. Our religions were always such schools in the past, but how many people regard them like that today? Basic thing of Jungian psychology is that there are 2 halves of life. In the first half, we are creating an ego, developing an ego, a sense of self, and then in the second half of life, when we're hopefully more mature and ready to respond more accurately to life, it is a giving back. In other words, we collect a self in the beginning of the process, first half of life, and then in the second, we let go. Jung said there are a different set of rules that apply to the first half than to the second. So this becomes a time of listening to our souls. Call it a midlife crisis, the time in between. I've made money. I've started a family. Is this all there is? That's kind of the question that starts coming up. And that's when we're ready to listen to our souls and see if we don't come up with a different answer than we had up until that point. When I left academia 30 years ago, so he spent part of his life, early part of his life, Hollis did, as an academician, a professor teaching the humanities. So when I left academia 30 years ago, I was not leaving education. I was leaving conversations with adolescents for conversations with adults who, by 40 or older, had both achieved enough ego strength to reflect on their journey with all its problems and had achieved a history that demands such reflection. My investment in this second half of life educational project has led me to work with and for various Jung societies around the world, as well as to write books, the chief purpose of which is to bridge the gap between the sometimes arcane thought of Jung and a public that has so much to gain from his insights. So Hollis sees himself as an intermediary between Jung, who is unquestionably somewhat difficult to comprehend, takes a lot of work, a lot of effort, but the need out there to understand what Jung was talking about is so important that some people have got to kind of get in the middle there and do the translating so that we can understand the message that he was trying to convey, because it's extremely important. And I'm going to make the point that it's maybe even more important to those of us who are alcoholics and addicts, for whom an understanding and an experience of spirituality is vital to our recovery process. And that's what Jung is getting at. He says, the ancient ones had their sacred stories and rituals that linked our ancestors to the various orders of mystery, the whirling cosmos, the world of nature of which they were a part, the participation in tribal life, in the conduct of a purpose-filled journey. As those linking images, stories, and rituals have waned, have lessened in their efficacy, they have left us to our own devices. And yet each of us has our own daemon. A daemon, he says, is an inspirited, bridging entity that visits the in-between of gods and humans. He's saying here, this is very Jungian, that each of us has our own daemon. And a daemon, D-A-I-M-O-N, this is his definition, an inspirited bridging entity. All right? It's an entity that is going to come and fill in the gap between the spirit world and the physical world. All right? It's going to bridge that gap, the gap between the gods or the divine and human everyday reality. Socrates professed that he, as ego consciousness, did not philosophize, but that the daemon spoke through his ego structure into the world. So it wasn't Socrates who was speaking, it was the daemon who was speaking through him, if you can catch that. Similarly, Plato considered that the daemon, also known as the muse, possesses the artist and uses the painter or musician as a vehicle of expression. So you listen to the muses. You allow the muses to work through you. All right? You're starting to get it? They didn't understand consciousness. They didn't understand the unconscious. That was foreign language to them. They talked in a different vocabulary. But I think what Jung is doing is putting it into modern day speech. Between the conscious world and the unconscious world, between the third and the fourth dimension of reality, to put it in 12-step language, there's an intermediary. It's not conscience. This is right, this is wrong, although it can help with that. It's something deeper that we need to get in touch with, and it wants to get in touch with us. So just hang on. I think it'll become clear. I have experienced, and no doubt the reader has also, the many times when I was working on a problem or living through a difficult decision, and suddenly the path for me became clear. When young, and no one else was in the room with me, I might have claimed that I had figured it out on my own. I did not have any idea of what was really working within and through me. The single biggest, most compelling area of investigation for me is what I see of the autonomous other. Other is with a capital O. It's the great reality, the autonomous other working through my analytic clients and through myself. So he sees the working of some divine voice, principle, agent at work in his clients and at work in his own life too. Something is always trying to work its way through us into the world. Growing and developing require being open to that encounter, surrendering to it, and serving the exfoliation of meaning it brings. I had to look up exfoliation. What was he saying exactly here? It talks about dead skin. I remember that from biology. The skin falls away. Well, that's the sense in which he's using it. That the life that we formed needs to be exfoliated. It needs to be letting go of the dead skin and always getting down to the new stuff. See, if we're not involved in this process, recovery is going to become very boring. May take you 5 years, 10, I don't know. Took me 20. But it came to the point where, is this all there is? And that's when I discovered, no, there's a hell of a lot more. And the dead skin that had accumulated had to be exfoliated, had to be let go of. Jung put it very forcefully. Deviation from the truths of the blood begets neurotic restlessness, and we have had about enough of that these days. Restlessness begets meaninglessness, and the lack of meaning in life is a soul sickness whose full extent and full import our age has not yet begun to comprehend. In a medieval mindset, the world was very clear. God was in heaven, devil was down in the depths of hell. We're kind of muddling through as best we can in the middle, and we're going to look to the church for answers for everything, all right? And look to the Bible for answers for everything. Very clear, all right? That is not the way it is today. We have rockets, when am I going to hit heaven if I keep going higher? Or I dig down the depths of the earth, when am I going to hit hell? That's not going to hold. So what is it? It's an inner world. And this is new. This is about 100 years old or so, a little more. But this is new territory, and we need maps, and we need explorers. And that's the way I think of Jung, as an explorer who went deep inside, and uncovered the psyche and put it into language that people can access in the modern world. Our daemon, I don't use that word, so you're going to have to forgive me. Our daemon is our tutelary, and that means our guardian. Almost like a guardian angel, you might say, is our tutelary, our teacher, our guardian, and constant companion. Now, don't literalize this. I used to literalize this when I was in Catholic grammar school. You have a guardian angel, you scoot your little butt over and make room so the angel can sit down. I remember doing that in the first, second grade, But it's constantly with us, and it's guarding us in some ways, making sure it's like the navigation system, internal. It has been there from childhood to the present, but it is usually drowned out by the noise of our environment, the fears that haunt us, the stories that separate us, and the sundry distractions popular culture offers to help us avoid our own souls. Put simply, our daemon is our personal link to wisdom, to that which transcends ordinary ego consciousness, fourth dimension, catapulted to a fourth dimension of existence, of reality. All right? That's what he's talking about. That's what we're talking about in 12-step recovery. That connection with this is what's vital for us to experience and then to maintain conscious contact with. Right? It embodies what is right for us, no matter how trying the summons, the call will prove to the comfort motives of the ego. Many of us tried to hold on to our old ideas. The result was nil till we let go absolutely. Many of us tried to find a softer, easier way, but we could not. All right? We beg of you, with all the earnestness at our command, make this connection, because everything's going to depend upon that. History is replete with those we admire for submitting their ego's agendas before the summons of the daemon. Large souls like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., and Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Who's he talking about? Those who completely give themselves to this simple program. These people surely wished normal lives like ours, but their souls demanded they sacrifice the normal desire for comfort, for safety, and for fitting in to respond to the injustices of their time. Our nature is forever changing and seeking growth when outer forces or inner resistance oppose that growth. We experience a terrible deadening of the spirit. So this spirit within us that wants to manifest through our own lives, that's just a way of saying it wants us to become everything that we're capable of becoming. And if we don't, we're going to pay a hell of a price for that. This is pushing us, pulling us, tugging at us. All right? And it's more than just conscience. It's the life force that exists inside each and every man and woman. So many humans still suffer this diminution of spirit by the social constructs that limit them, or by fear-ridden stories. These are the lies we tell ourselves, whose adaptive strategies take them further and further from their possible appointment with destiny. Just think of the constrictive role gender definitions and prescriptions play in damaging souls, or how so many people get estranged from their bodies and healthy sexuality. All these rules, regulations, you can't do this, you must do that, and so our souls give in to that, and we keep us from being who we were meant to be. So much suffering has arisen for individuals out of the codification of group fears in normative oughts and shoulds. We've got to pay attention. How much inside of me am I doing or not doing because of the oughts and shoulds that we have an expression in 12-step. Hey, I'm shoulding all over me. Watch for that. See where it's coming from. Is it something that was given to me years ago by someone who was also fear-laden? Or is it something that I freely adopt and want to live by myself? Is it freely chosen? Or is it somebody else's crap that has been handed down to me? There's a lot of it, and that I've seen in my life. And particularly it comes from parents, messages a 5, 6, 3-year-old kid is interpreting and doesn't know how to handle. But now we're 30, 40, 50 years old, whatever it might be. Is it time to give that back to them because it was theirs, and to become who we are meant to be in the world? This is the stuff he's getting at here. The growth of the psyche may take its form in learning new things, in travel and exploration in many forms, or simply in sitting with ourselves and listening to our souls from time to time. In his poem, Homecoming, German poet Friedrich Holderlin wrote, this is quite beautiful, "That which thou seekest is near and already coming to meet thee." You know, you say we're looking for God. No. Look out. All right? That which thou seekest is near. In fact, it's already coming to meet us. Imagine that. The possibility of knowing what is right for us is so close at hand all the while. And then, of course, we have to find the courage to live it. And this is, for me, the reason I think two-way prayer is so very important. It's not to just get a message from God like it's coming out of the blue. It's to learn to listen to the deepest parts of self, which are divine, all right? Which is the God within, the beyond that is in residence within the deepest parts of ourselves, our souls. All right? And that wants to speak to us. That's who I want to listen to. And then he says, and that's who you need to have the courage to follow. So that's one of the takeaways, that our psyches, our souls, wish to be heard. And this is why prayer and meditation is so important. And in the beginning, why it was more important than going to meetings even, to spend time in prayer and meditation, in listening quietly by myself in the early morning time. Is there something inside that is speaking to me? What were the events of yesterday trying to say to me? What were the fears that were coming up, trying to announce to me? Where is my work? Where is the inner blockage that needs to be removed? This is what two-way prayer is about. All right. Number 5, takeaway from a study of Jung. It's this, he says, fear and lethargy are our greatest opponents. In 1912, Jung published a revolutionary and difficult book, now revised and retitled Symbols of Transformation. While he recognized the directive role our instincts play, as did Freud, and how we are socialized, as did Alfred Adler, he also asserted that the human animal possesses a, quote, symbolic life, unquote. That is, an awareness that there is a field of invisible energies at work within our lives, and that we are creatures of the spirit, as well as bodies and relational associations. See, most psychology is not going to touch the area of the soul. Study, go get your master's, your PhD. You may never hear that word. But if you're going to study Jungian psychology, and if we're going to follow in the path and tradition of Roland Hazard, who, you know, the drunk who went to see Jung in Switzerland, and Jung said, I try everything psychiatry has to offer, you know, and I'm very good, but not good enough. You need something more. You need a spiritual experience, a psychic change, an encounter with the divine. That's what set this whole thing rolling, you know? And we are following in that tradition. All right? Very important, very important. In reflecting on the archetypal gestalt of the hero, all right? Right. In reflecting on the archetype of the hero, I am convinced that if you are setting off like Roland was, you're really setting off not to just stop drinking, but you're setting off on the hero's journey. You're setting off to overcome the hurdles, the obstacles that are keeping you from life. That's the real treatment plan that Jung had in mind. So, and it is a hero's journey. We're going to look back on it, maybe not in the early days, but after you've got a number of years in the program, you look back, gain some perspective, and did you accomplish what you were here to do? Which was not to count the number of meetings you've been to, but the number of things you've overcome in yourself, the freedom that you've attained. The 12-step goal, having had a spiritual awakening or originally an experience, having had that, having had what I set out to find, then I got a message to carry to others and to practice these principles in all of my affairs. In reflecting on the archetypal gestalt of the hero, Jung notes how each of us has an innate cluster of energy whose task it is to overthrow the dark powers that threaten, whether outer or inner. You go on the hero's journey, you're going to meet conflict. You're going to meet obstacles, hurdles inside you and hurdles outside you. The outer threats are the powers and principalities of this earth that confront us and generate fear. In the face of fear, he notes, the spirit of evil is fear, negation, the adversary who opposes life in its struggle for eternal duration and thwarts every great deed. So the journey, the hero's journey, is going to be difficult. And there's going to be an entity, a force, a power, an energy that's going to be there wanting to stop us. And we need to be aware of this. Each of us knows this well. For more of our reflexive patterning behaviors arise out of fear management, or rather our being managed by fear, than out of any other motive. Straight out of the big book, eh? Fear in 100 different forms. This is why inventory was considered so very important. We had to name our fears, identify them, put them down on paper. What's keeping me from becoming me is the question we might be asking in a good fourth step. And yet each of us also knows a summons to show up in life as ourselves, no matter how deeply buried that impulse is. So we got something that's saying, don't look. I think this is right out of the book too. Don't look. Don't you dare look there. And another part of us that's saying, you have to look. You have to go there. All right? Two sides of self. It's very important that we come to recognize these as they operate within our lives, you know? Like I said, I think in the last episode, who's driving the bus? Is it the frightened ego self who's driving the bus? Or is it the self that's listening to the daemon, the self that's listening to the God within, the Christ mind, the Buddha mind, goes by any number of names, okay? So the summons, there's something summoning us. Jung continues, for the hero, Fear is a challenge and task, because only boldness can deliver from fear. And if the risk is not taken, the meaning of life is somehow violated, and the whole future is condemned to a hopeless staleness, to a drab gray, lit only by will-o'-the-wisps. And I had to look that one up. What the hell is a will-o'-the-wisps? Dictionary said it's the false lights that come out of a swamp or something like that. It's the gases being released that create a light. If we follow those, we're going to sink, So we got to find the real light, the genuine light, the light that leads us and guides us. It's not easy stuff, guys, but I think, at least for me, it's giving me language and images that are giving me a map to my own soul. And that's what is needed. It's not going to, give you, 5 easy steps for becoming everything in the world. It's helping us to understand what's going on at the deepest parts of ourself. I mean, that's what Jungian stuff is helpful, has been for me. As intimidating as the outer world can be, there's a far greater, far more insidious force within us that can equally sabotage the project our journey seeks to bring into the world. That force is found in the seduction of unconsciousness, indolence, meaning laziness or sloth, which Jung labeled as our greatest vice. Speaking of the hero, Jung writes, always he imagines his worst enemy in front of him, yet carries the enemy within himself, a deadly longing for the abyss, a longing to drown in his own source. What's blocking us from moving forward? There are external fears. They're real. But maybe even more powerful are the internal fears that keep me from moving forward in my life. I've always said that I always wanted to add a 5th element to the 4 absolutes: honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. I said, we need a 5th, and that's courage. Courage to do what the daemon is asking of us, what the voice within is asking, what life is asking of me. You need courage. The hero's journey is no easy journey to set off on or to stay on. It takes guts. Recognized by our ancestors as well, quote, this regressive tendency, this tendency to back off, to go back to the last secure. Guy taught me this in early sobriety. Very helpful. He said, when you get really scared, when you don't know what to do, watch. You're going to go back to the last place you found security. And for me, that was in a bottle. So when I want to regress, back up, go get back into the crib, all right? When you get into the crib, they give you a bottle, don't they? That's the feeling. I just want to pull the covers up over my head and make the world go away. I know how to do that. I drink, I drug, and it goes away for a time. But so do I, and so do you, and so does life. That's the stuff we're getting to here. This regressive tendency has been consistently opposed from the most primitive times by the great psychotherapeutic systems, which we know as the religions. They were there to give us courage. They seek to create an autonomous consciousness by weaning mankind away from the sleep of childhood. Real religion, there's not much of it out there, but the real stuff is an invitation to grow up, It's an invitation to leave childhood behind and to take on responsibilities and to lead the life we were meant to live. And that's a far cry from doctrines, dogmas, and that sort of thing. It's a living connection with the divine. That's what religion was intended to do in all shapes and forms throughout the world. Jung is suggesting here that the rites of passage and doctrinal allegiances of religion mobilize the human libido, the life force, into forms of action that persevere and empower the survival of the tribe and the individual, thus preventing a regression into dependencies and sloth. So, if I can have the things in my life, the practices in particular, the spiritual practices that enhance my connection to the divine, and the divine gives me the meaning and the purpose and the direction and the energy to move forward rather than sliding backwards, then I'm on the journey. Then I've started the process, real recovery. We all have this titanic struggle going on within each of us every day. The ego, whipsawed between fear and lethargy, fear of going forward, wanting to retreat back into childhood, okay? The ego, whipsawed by this, can easily be intimidated or seduced to the point that our life never happens. Oh, I'm going to read that one again. Our ego can be intimidated or seduced to the point that our life never happens. It may go on. You may be getting older and older, but at some point, it really stopped. We got to find out what was that point, and how can I now go forward differently? That's what he's getting at. It is no crime to have fear. That is human. It is, however, a crime to only lead a fearful life. It is, however, a crime only to lead a fearful life. It is no crime to have fear. That is human. But it is a crime to lead a fearful life. Many think courage is being fearless, but only the psychotic or delusional are fearless. Courage is showing up in the face of the large world and its powers. And the power of lethargy must not be forgotten either, especially in a society such as ours, with its ready access to soporific chemicals, sleep-inducing. I had to look that one up too. Soporific chemicals, sleep-inducing chemicals that numb us, and fantasies that distract us. After all, we live in a culture that whispers in our ear, when the going gets tough, the tough go shopping. Superficial answers to life's problems. American culture in particular is full of it. Full of it. All of us are the humble carriers of the spark of life and the project of individuation. Individuation does not mean a fatuous narcissistic self-absorption, but rather a submission to what wants to enter the world through us. Life is not here to serve us. We are here to serve life. Steps 2 and 3. 2, there is this power, this source, this guiding light within me that wants to become me, all right? As I become me, it becomes part of me as well. See, the split is over. And if I can connect with this in 2 and 3, then I live it out. I live it out. And I live it out most particularly in 10, 11, and 12. steps 4 through 9, I'm clearing away everything that gets in the way of it. But then 10, 11, and 12, I'm living it on a daily basis. It's the journey. It's the hero's journey. I get up in the morning. What does life need from me today? What are my marching orders? This is why I do two-way prayer. All right? Here's the guidance for today. Dr. Bob said that's what he would do every morning, and then go about his Father's business. What freedom! What freedom it is. This means that we have to face these outer and inner obstacles, fear and lethargy, every day. Each of us, no one is exempt. Gives a short story here that I think was very helpful. He says, I live in a 4-story condominium, and every morning I take an elevator down 6 stories into the underground level where my car sits. As the elevator descends, I say to myself these simple 6 words. You can borrow them if you wish, or get your own mantra. Here is 6 words. Shut up, suit up, show up. The first tells me to stop whining and complaining. Most of us live privileged lives. Most, not all of us, have food on the table, a roof over our head, and relative security of person. So stop complaining. Simply shut up. Now, there's a part of my mind that wants to look at my life through the ego perspective, and it says, how am I doing? Do I have enough of this, enough of that? Need to get more of this, There's never enough, Shut up. Shut up. All right? That's number 1. Second, suit up. This tells me to work at what is worthy of my commitment. Get prepared. Do the homework. No excuses for not being ready to take on what the day brings us. Suit up. Do the assignment. One of the first things I do in my two-way prayer in the morning is I look at yesterday's writing. I received guidance to do certain things. Did I do them? Did I suit up? Did I follow the guidance? Or did I not? Did I blow it off? If I blew it off, then I'm back in my ego world. And the energy starts to subside. It starts to go away. Meaning and purpose start to get lost. We all have to serve something. And if you're serving yourself, you're going to get very tired of it. If you're serving God, if you're serving life, it's endless. But the energy that's provided with it is endless as well. The last, show up, tells me that we all have to show up. That is, just do our best. Throw ourselves into it. No one is perfect. No one is ever finished. No one ever gets out of this life alive. Just do it as well as you can, one day at a time, I would add. That is all anyone can ask. That is all that history asks. Try to forgive yourself from time to time along the way. Life is here to be served. It is all a blooming mystery. And we will never figure it out. And don't pay any attention, he says, to any of those palookas who tell you they have. But one thing is clear. We are here to bring ourselves, our best selves, to this troubled globe, plunging through oceans of space. That's what we're here to do. That's the assignment, I used to tell people when they came into treatment, this treatment center is not going to be the same because you're here. It will either be a better place or a worse place. It will not be the same place. And I think that's the message he's leaving us here. This world will not be the same because of your life and my life. It will be a better world, or it will be a worse world. All right? That is up to us. And it's up to us in our little corner of this world. Am I doing what life is asking of me, or am I blowing it off and staying self-centered, ego-centered? If I am, watch for the fear. It's going to be there. It's going to be there. Watch for the guilt and the shame. It's going to be there. Why? Because I'm not doing what I was sent here to do. We're often gripped by fear, by the comforting powers of the old adaptations, whose chief virtues were anxiety management and protection. These anxieties, they came for a reason. They came to protect the child who was overwhelmed by much of life, especially if you grew up in a dysfunctional family. It was overwhelming. And so you develop anxiety management systems that worked as a kid, but now you're a hell of a lot older than that. And now it's time to let go of those. Now it's time to really grow up. Or alternatively, he says, our path ahead is blocked by familiar apprehensions about stepping into the unknown on our own. No wonder we tend to abide the familiar, stultifying as it may be. Yet something within always knows, always protests, always begins to withdraw approval and support, even as we ratify our old inner diversions and archaic stories. We go back, we stay stuck, all right? And it's going to withhold its approval from us. And how is it going to do that? By manifesting pathologies within us. These pathologies are signals from our souls that we ain't doing it right. We ain't living the way we're intended to live. And the beautiful thing about this, guys, is, once you get this insight, and you might get it, 2 or 3 times a day, you can start your day over. You can start it all over. I'm going to draw from this source of strength now. I've been drawn from the other. I've been drawing from my ego. All right? But now I'm going to draw from this 4th dimension of existence. And it's going to run out to meet you. You treat the unconscious respectfully. The unconscious will treat you respectfully and fruitfully. So how can we find our way? Make the right choices. Sometimes we just can't. And we have to live in the midst of the very uncomfortable for a very long time until something unexpected appears from within. As Jung writes, you can only feel yourself on the right road when the conflicts of duty seem to have resolved themselves, and you have become the victim of a decision made over your head or in defiance of the heart. From this, we can see the numinous power of the self, capital S, which can hardly be experienced in any other way. For this reason, the experience of the self is always a defeat for the ego. Sometimes we have situations that we are living in and through over which we have no choice. All right? I'm in prison. I'm incapacitated. I'm poor. All right? Fate has handed me some severe challenges. Can't change them. But I can change my attitude towards them. And this, to me, is where Viktor Frankl saved my first year of sobriety. There I was at the Salvation Army. And tough as that was on my pride and my ego, I'm reading his book, and there he is in a concentration camp. And he's asking the same questions that Hollis is asking of us in these chapters. What is life asking of you in the circumstances in which you find yourself? And he said the people who found meaning and purpose in Dachau, in Auschwitz, they tended to survive longer. They found meaning and purpose in their lives. In a world where, how the hell could you find anything like that? By helping others, by staying alive as long as you can, so that if and when you got out of here, you're going to make a difference in the world. Those were the things that kept him going. And those are the things that we've got to find in our lives that are going to keep us going through the hard times. All right? He says the ultimate decisions of our lives are made by some higher agency than the ego. Ego intentionality is tasked with the governance of daily life. But when ego consciousness can accord itself with the will of the self, there is a profound sense of the rightness, the peace, the accord that comes from a moment of wholeness when we are at one with ourselves and not this split, divided, warring assemblage of fractious parties. And they say youth is wasted on the young. I'm approaching 80 years old. I've reached that time in my life and that time in my sobriety when I'm able to look back on things. And that's, I think, the appropriate thing to be doing at my age. To look back on what did I accomplish? What did I not accomplish? What remains to be accomplished? Things that were important back then in the beginning, not so important now, you know? And that's a sign that certain things were given. I didn't have a choice, I don't think, as to where I was born or what some of the early influences were. No choice on those. But later in life, and very few choices, maybe even as I was growing and so very immature and tossed about by the unconscious driving me in this direction or that direction. But in time, and with time, and when you look back, more and more freedom is open to us. And this is the people, I think, who have long-term sobriety and have really benefited from it. That stopping drinking was the thing that we had to do to get it going. Nothing good was going to come of it if it didn't. But more important than that was that I had to grow up. I had to become more mature. I had to find this inner power, strength, call it God, call it a daemon, call it your inner guide. Doesn't matter. I've listened to hundreds and hundreds of people's two-way prayer. The voice always sounds the same. It's wisdom. It's wisdom and it's courage and it's love. Speaking to us, leading us on, pushing us forward. All right? That's the journey, guys. That's it. I think that's enough for one session. We did two things. We looked at that our psyche wishes to be heard. That's one takeaway. And the second takeaway was that fear and lethargy are our greatest opponents. I thought I'd close with the original Serenity Prayer because it kind of sums it up as to what we're here to do. It's the we version. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, taking as he did, this sinful world as it is, not as we would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if we surrender to your will so we may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. So, there you have it. Hope it was helpful. If it was, come back next time and we'll finish this book up. Thanks for listening. God bless. Keep coming back.